The 173rd Assault Helicopter Company, an Army Specialist 4th Class, was a door gunner aboard a helicopter trapped with other helicopters in a landing zone by intense hostile fire. It was January of 1968. As he went to help his aircraft commander, 2 enemy rockets exploded just inches from him. Blown into a rice paddy and bleeding profusely due to the loss of a left arm and severe wounds to his right arm, chest, and left leg, he staggered back to his machine gun, the only weapon placing effective enemy fire. Overcoming the shock and extreme pain of his injuries, he remained at his position until he eliminated the automatic weapons emplacement that had pinned them down. Refusing to attend to his own extensive wounds, he attempted to return to aid the aircraft commander, but passed out from a loss of blood. Regaining consciousness, he persisted in his efforts to drag himself to aid a fellow crewman. We're proud to have him with us today. Please join me in welcoming Specialist Gary George Wetzel.
I want to spend a few moments and talk about the idea of the American Spirit Awards. What is the essence of the American Spirit of the Award? My heroes, in fact, are the young men and women then and today who face the issues of war and possibly death, and then weighed those concerns against obligations to their country. Citizen soldiers who interrupted their personal and professional lives, and for most of them, incidentally, at the most formative stage of their life and career. Not for fame, and not for reward, and not for place or rank, but in simple obedience to duty as they understood it. And in fact, who deserve a far better place in history than has been offered to them here to date. So it is tonight that we want to recognize that spirit with the American Spirit Award recipients who truly reflect the hearts and minds of these men and women who serve their country so sacrificially. Bob Hope started entertaining the troops in 1941 with a radio show at March Field, which is now March Air Force Base. He started the Christmas tours in 1948. From 1964 to 1972, Bob and his troop entertained in Vietnam. His most ambitious tour was 1969. Bob traveled to Berlin, to Italy, to Turkey, to Vietnam, Thailand, Taiwan, and Guam. He brought along astronaut Neil Armstrong and Connie Stevens and many, many others, for those of you that remember that. Somebody a lot smarter than me once said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So let's just take a look at this very remarkable man and his work.
All right, let's hear it for him, Bob Hope.
Without further ado, it's my honor to present Bob Hope.
I'd now like to give you the one and only Bob Hope.
This is Christmas Day, and I know you recognize me, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Chicken. I know you do. This base is loaded with brass. You can't go 5 feet without saluting. They have more guys in the hospital with tennis elbow than they do with shrapnel. Now, we've had all kinds of demonstrations back in the States. Get out of Vietnam. Don't get out of Vietnam. Why don't you go back where you came from? And I came from Vietnam, that's why. This is my 8th trip to Nam, and now that the war's winding down, I want to say I do appreciate you fellas hanging around here just for me.
I want to tell you thank you from every man and woman in the United States Command. We're all troopers, and we look on you as the same breed.
God bless all you guys. And Bob, God bless you for coming over here, giving your Christmas year every year, and all of these wonderful people that are with you.
Have a Merry Christmas, and God bless you. Bye.
Accepting the award for Bob is his daughter, Linda Holt.
Thank you all from the bottom of my heart. You men and women that served during the Vietnam years were so close to his heart. You were his heart. And, you know, I had so many people come up to me today with memories of my dad, and it made him feel so close to me and feel so close to all of you. And a little piece of him is in each and every one of you. So in accepting this award for my dad, I accept it for all of those people that are out there entertaining years with him and those that are going to come forward from now on to carry on that banner. And so anyway, to all of you, thank you very, very much. And also I appreciate this beautiful, beautiful honor. I haven't seen these statues, but they're fabulous. Absolutely fabulous, and I'm very happy I don't have to lift it. Thank you all.
There is a special category of veteran, and before we go any further, I would like all of the prisoners of war to please stand at this time so we may honor you. It is certainly no secret that the POWs in Vietnam were treated brutally, tortured frequently, kept in solitary confinement with poor food and little medical care. The stories which would emerge after their release were horrific, and yet somehow they held on to something deep inside, a spirit which the North Vietnamese could not break. Despite all the hardships, POWs devised absolutely ingenious codes to communicate and keep up morale, even in the most desperate of times. To tell one of the stories, here are three former POWs, Paul Galanti, Max Datt, and Congressman Sam Johnson.
I was in solitary for 42 months, so the only way I had any knowledge of anything was by tapping on the wall. And we had a tap code, of course, and managed to get information around.
All of a sudden, I hear somebody tapping on the wall. And I remember when I was a kid, I read a lot of comics, you know, and in some of the stories, they were using letter A, one tap for letter A and 26 for letter Z. So I tried to do the same thing. And the guy responded and asked me if I saw the alphabet box on the wall. And I looked at it and I heard the guy tapping. And it was Paul Galanti. He was the first one to teach me how to use it.
And I made the first contact with him, taught him how to tap. I thought he was a little weird because his English was a little strange, but I figured, see, Lieutenant Dot, something or other Air Force, I figured it's probably just an anglicized Polish name or something, and Air Force guys didn't know how to spell right anyway. And then as more I tapped to him, the more I figured out that he never misspelled anything. His grammar was immaculate, and his words were okay. So he said, this is really a strange Air Force lieutenant. Well, it turns out he was Vietnamese.
They let us out, some of us, out to sweep the yard every now and then, and so they would sweep in code and pass stuff around to the whole camp. We got put in Alcatraz, 11 of us, and Jerry Denton and Jim Stockdale, Jim Mulligan, and a few of us. There were 3 Air Force, the rest was Navy. I learned more about boats than I ever wanted to know. And Jerry decided we weren't talking fast enough because there we had to pass it around by tapping on the wall. We were all in separate single cells, so it went around 11 different ways. And so he came up with what he called a Colfax bit code. And Jerry might remember it a little differently, but we used to sign off at night with a GBU, which stood for God Bless You, and it would go something like this. And which is GBU.
After years of solitary confinement at the Hanoi Hilton, some of the POWs were finally allowed to get together in small groups. When that happened, they supported each other even more. On one occasion, as the POWs were holding a church service, something they were not allowed to do, things took an amazing turn. To hear the story from those who lived it, let's take a look at this video clip.
The next church service, we started and had it as usual. They shouted, the guards came in and shouted, "Shut mouth, sit down." We didn't do either, we were on a roll. Well, as soon as it was over, they took 4 of us outside the wall. And you know, from throats that had been silent all these years, hearts were filled though with love of country and faith in God. When a man stood on a tall man's shoulder and pulled himself up by the barred windows and looked down to see what was happening, he could see us being tied to be taken away for torture, and he reported back inside, "Old Bud Day started the Star-Spangled Banner."
I jumped up on a concrete pedestal, started singing the Star-Spangled Banner. Everybody in the room picked it up. The next building picked it up. It went around the camp, and pretty soon every room in the camp was singing the Star-Spangled Banner. And then we went to the Eyes of Texas, and we went through Glory, Glory, Hallelujah, every song anybody knew. And we sang for about probably 3 hours.
It was in such volume, went through the window, overhead, over the wall, in downtown Hanoi. Something, you know, and I've said this so often, it's real. I was in pain. I knew I was going into torture, and but I'd never been prouder. And I said, I felt 9 feet tall, like I could go bear hunting with a switch.
I think we stuck together as much as we could. We stood behind our leaders and raised Cain, told them we were going to raise Cain, and did.
Please give a warm welcome to the man who, when his fellow POWs sang the national anthem, said he felt like he was 9 feet tall and could whip a bear with a switch. General Robertson Robbie Reisner.
I haven't been prouder, let me start off by saying, I haven't been prouder to be a Vietnam veteran than I am right now. It's true, I spent 7.5 years as a prisoner of war. 4 years of that time was in solitary confinement. I've had people say, well, I couldn't hack that. Yeah, you could. You'd be surprised how resilient the human mind and body is, especially when you have such firm belief in America. I split my time between God and America. I prayed a lot. And that was the way I survived. I can remember they would try to get me to condemn my country. They would torture me. I can remember them putting handcuffs on my wrists, behind my back, my feet in stocks. and leaving me there to live in my own body waste. Well, I knew the Lord knew exactly where I was and what I was going through, but the second day when I fell backwards, closed that right handcuff one more notch. I already had blood poisoning, big red streaks running up my arms. That's when I said, Lord, now I need help. Well, I turned to the right, hooked my right handcuff on the sharp edge of that cement bunk, came off. I still had a big old 4-inch rusty padlock locking my feet in stocks. I said, Lord, one more lock, and I just bumped it, fell off. I'm so proud to be American. I appreciate things I always took for granted before. I don't take for granted as much anymore because I lost them and then regained them. Hey, God bless you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm welcome to a true friend of the veteran, Mr. Tony Orlando.
For 30-some-odd years, I've waited for this day. And let me tell you what our Vietnam vets really are standing for now. Without them even realizing it, the pain, the anguish, the embarrassment, and what they had to go through was for a reason, as it is always with the Lord above. He has a reason for us we never knew in the first place. These young men who serve in Iraq will never return in the manner of which the Vietnam vet returned. These Vietnam vets will also know that if there is anybody in disagreement with this war, that like the Vietnam vet, they can stand tall, stand proud, and say, I did my part, buddy.
You know, Jim, one of the greatest things about Tony is his heart, as you just witnessed here, especially when it comes to veterans. He makes appearances, he promotes veterans' causes, he gives freely of his time all year long to veterans' causes, which is why tonight we are proud to recognize Tony Orlando with the American Spirit Award for his work, its selfless contribution to veterans. Tony, come on back to the stage.
Come on back out here, Tony.
As I said earlier, to those of you who may not know Tim Rogers, he's a local hero to us. He served in Vietnam. He died in Branson serving his country and tirelessly working for veterans' causes with Gary and with everyone in town. And I just want to accept this award in the name of a Vietnam vet who I love dearly and miss so much and owe so much to. I accept it with great, very humble in front of my wife, Franny, and my daughter, Jenny, in the name of Tim Rogers. God bless you all, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, 5-time male vocalist and Grammy Award winner, Lee Greenwood.
Good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Recognizing the commitment of people before us, many times we have to make the choice what we do to support this great country. And every day, my sons, who are now 10 and 6, get down on their knees and pray each night. We recognize the commitment of our United States military, first of all. And this is a wonderful moment for me as well, to be able to stand up and honor those people and give them the 2 simple words that they wanted to hear so desperately in the 60s when they came home, in the 70s, when they were going through such tough times. Welcome home. Oh, I'm proud to be I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me, and I'd gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the
Ladies and gentlemen, the Oak Ridge Boys.
Red as the bloodshed, blue as the wounded, white as the crosses on our soldiers' graves. Through the rain, through the sun, these colors never run.
The final American Spirit Award goes to a truly amazing and deserving individual. We want to tell you some things about him that you may not know. He's the kind of man who works behind the scenes, not out in the spotlight. And even though he has been honored with many awards, he always finds a way to turn the spotlight on the real heroes, as he calls them.
A few years back, when Gulf War symptoms were considered just stress, Ross was asked by some top military leaders to help. In his typical fashion, he got the best researchers to see what they could do. So take a look at this.
The Gulf War illness was something that Ross recognized right up front that we had a problem. There was something wrong with a lot of our troops coming back to this country, and he wasn't taking the government's answer that nothing's wrong, don't worry about it.
The first time I heard from Ross Perot about the Gulf War syndrome, he called up out of the blue and said, "What do you know about the Gulf War syndrome?" And I said, "Well, I don't know a whole lot about it. Most people think it's really just stress reaction, and I haven't really looked into it." He said, "I've met some veterans that I know are sick. And do you have anybody at the medical school who would be able and willing to look into it and see if they can figure out what's going on?"
From early '94 on, it was they formed this Osagwe group with $20 million a year to make it go away, and Congress was against it, with some exceptions like Kay Bailey Hutchison. And so I went to Mr. Perot and said, "We're dead in the water," and he said, "Well, you're talking to the wrong guys. You're talking to the bureaucrats. You need to talk to the generals. If you talk to the generals, they're interested in the troops and they'll help."
Dr. Haley did great work for Ross and continued with his research.
We found, in looking at it, it was very clear there is a Gulf War syndrome. It's a collection of symptoms that really hangs together. It's a new disease. Second, that it was due to brain cell damage, that is, brain dysfunction, physical brain dysfunction, not psychological problems. And third, that it looks very strongly like it was a chemical exposure that did it, most likely sarin nerve gas, low-level sarin nerve gas that wasn't enough to kill people, but it was enough to damage the brains of certain susceptible people.
Mr. Perot has helped a generation of veterans from the Gulf War, well over 697,000 veterans.
We're seeing now the scientific community is getting excited about this. They see there is possibly a physical reason for these 100,000 plus veterans who are